Hi everybody, it's Kelly Holland. I am here with Lisa Somerville from Divinity Designs, and we are here to bring you our Beautiful Backgrounds virtual event. This video will be focusing on our stitched background dies. Any of our background dies that have stitching, we will be showing you. First one up is our stitched sunburst. Now this is the die that cuts out each area separately. We had gone over our sunburst background, which is an embossing die, but this one does cut out each of the sun rays separately. So let me show you some different ideas. Here we have where each of the inside pieces have been colored. It did a little shading. See that one. This one, just yellow and white were used with one of our verses. Here we have it with our patriotic paper. Some more pattern papers. This one's adorable. So you could do it vertically or horizontally. And here's a different on this one where you could just use a portion of it. You don't have to use the whole background die. You could just use it for the top of the card. Nice fall card. You can see even each of the different pieces inside should be embossed to bring out the embossing on it. On this card, I'll show you. Each of the inside pieces has been popped up so that they're raised. Really pretty like that. This one, the inside pieces were stenciled with shading, and then the frame of the die was removed, so you only have the inside pieces. It's a different look. This one, the die was just used, totally just stenciling, so you don't have any cutout pieces, just stenciled. Then I have two shaker cards, where each piece was separately put down and then the sequins were put in each little compartment. And here's another one. That's a stitched sunburst die. Next is our chevron background. This is the chevron pattern. And each line, each section is stitched. So on all of the inside pieces, there's stitching. And I'll show you some samples. This card here is used with our gift pocket die. You can put a little gift card in there. You can see the different colors. Makes a beautiful chevron pattern. And you can see the stitching. Once again, if you emboss these dies, it adds even more detail in the raised areas. Another baby card. Turn it sideways, you could see the embossing better. These dies were released when we released the baby set, so that's why we have those card samples. Here's one with the baby carriage die. This one's really nicely embossed. Just add so much more to your cards when you have a little bit of the embossing in them. And finally, here we have where the chevron background was put together, and then you took the layering die from the A2 center step and you cut it out so that you can just have it in the one panel here in the center. It's very clever. This is our A2 center step. Sits on your table, fits into an A2 envelope. The quilted background die is probably our most popular of our quilted backgrounds. I'll show it to you here. Could be used for so many different things, and it has a really unique design. How cute that is, with lots of different types of papers that all coordinate together. Here it is along with our beautiful Blossom Paper Die Duo die cuts. This is using our coffee paper pad, some of our coffee stamps and dies, and verses. Another one. So you can see by using just different papers, it creates so many different looks. And finally, one with our hugs die. This is actually hugs. You just cut the S off if you want to use it for hug. You can see when you emboss these, it creates the embossed centers. Makes it so much prettier. Here's our quilted honeycomb. This die can be used many different ways. It can be used with all the pieces put back in, or you could take some out and leave some in. A lot of possibilities. Here it is with some different pieces put back in that have been cut out with different cardstocks, different patterned papers. It's a shaker card as well. And then here we have it with our Buzzing Gnomes Paper Die Duo. Just showing some of the pieces inside, showing through to the paper. You can find additional samples on the product page for the quilted honeycomb background. Next up is our stitching dies that are used for cross stitch. You can use these dies as just a background, or you could also cross stitch right into the die cut. We have an A2 cross stitch, a slimline cross stitch background, and our coordinating set called embroidery hoop set, which gives you the coordinating circle, a solid circle, and then the embroidery hoop with the needle and the little screw that goes into the hoop. So let me show you some card samples. First, we have a little bit peeking out of here. This is the A2 cross stitch background, along with one of our quilting dies. Another one with the A2 cross stitch background. You can find all our quilting dies on the website. Here's the A2 used along with the embroidery hoop set, where she left some of the pieces in so that she could stamp on it. A beautiful card by Angela Crockett. And now I have some A2 cross stitch backgrounds that Melody has made, and she has cross stitched on all these backgrounds to make some beautiful, beautiful cards. You see the cross stitch using embroidery floss. This is a pretty pattern here too. You could just use heavy cardstock so it's sturdy enough to do the cross stitching on. Here's another different pattern she made. Makes just a gorgeous card for a very special person, obviously. Spend that much time, you want to give it to a very special person. Now I have the slimline cross stitch background, where here Melanie made a border. And then added our happy birthday die in the center. Here's another one Angela made, where she just made a border around here with cross stitch. Put another verse in the center of it. Spelled out the word hoped to coordinate with the verse. And here's the card Lisa Blastic made, just using the solid circle, just to show you that being used with the embroidery hoop. And those are our stitching background dies.
Hi everyone, this is Lisa Somerville. Thank you, Kelly, for sharing Divinity Designs, stitching background dies, and the wonderful inspiration using these beautiful die sets. I'm here to share with you a few more projects and some tips and a tutorial using our stitching dies. Before I share with you some tips and a tutorial using Divinity Designs stitching background dies, I'd like to share with you a closer look at a few of the cards that I have on hand that I've created using these products along with additional Divinity Designs products. This card uses Divinity Designs pop-up card with layers die set, Jesus is a Stitch stamp set, the embroidery hoop die set, along with additional Divinity Designs products. The pop-up card with layers does fold flat for mailing purposes and fits into an A2 envelope. I do have two additional cards to share with you using the pop-up card with layers die set. Our embroidery hoop die contains 6 dies. You have the solid circle for stamped images, the cross-stitch circle, the hoops, the needle, and the pin for the embroidery hoop. You can find cross-stitch patterns online that work with our cross-stitch background dies. To die cut the embroidery hoop from this die set, you'll simply center the smaller circle within the embroidery hoop, add removable tape, then die cut following the directions for your die cutting machine. That will leave you the embroidery die cut that you see here. You can then stamp on the larger circle and place that behind the embroidery hoop, like you see on the finished card here, or you can die cut the cross-stitch circle and add that to the back side of the embroidery hoop. Although these two cards do not feature any of our stitching background dies, they do all feature Divinity Designs products. And it's just another way to show you how to use this die set. Here's a closer look at the chevron background die that Kelly shared with you earlier in this video. When using this die, be sure to die cut and emboss following the directions for your die cutting machine. Embossing the die will bring out the details of the die. That's the raised area that you see on the chevron strips. Next card features our flower petal quilt. Again, when using this die, be sure to die cut and emboss following the directions for your die cutting machine. And this last card features the stitched sunburst die. As with all of our other stitched dies, be sure to die cut and emboss following the directions for your die cutting machine. The embossing adds the raised area to the sunburst. I'll be showing you just how easy it is to create a background using the stitched sunburst die along with additional Divinity Designs products. Now I'd like to share with you some tips for using our stitched background dies. Before I share with you some tips, I'm going to go over the products I used to complete this card. We have the stitched sunburst die. When you die cut our stitched backgrounds, you'll have a border frame and then all the pieces that will fall from within the die. Again, when using these dies, be sure to die cut and emboss following the directions for your die cutting machine. Embossing the dies will bring out the detail of the die. Anytime you see 2 shades of purple on the packaging or the web images, that does indicate that you should emboss your dies for best results. The base die is the A2 Landscape card base with layer die set. This is a set of 2. This die will cut and score your cardstock to create an A2 size card base, 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. The layer is 4 by 5 1/4. Here's an example of the card base along with the layering panel. On my card, I'm going to be adding the matting rectangle. The matting rectangle is approximately 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 and will mat a 4 by 5 1/4 rectangle die. The matting rectangle adds a pop of color between the layer and the base die. The stitched sunburst die measures 4 by 5 1/4. That's the same size as the layering panel and the A2 Landscape card base with layer die set. I'm going to be using that panel as a backing for my stitched sunburst. The additional products on this card are the Bold Blessings Foiling Die Duo set. This is a set of 2. It includes 1 foiling plate and 1 coordinating die. You can always tell our foiling products because they're printed in yellow on both the packaging and the web images. To use our foiling products, you need a foil machine and a coordinating die cutting machine. If you don't own a foiling machine, this set is also available in a stamp die duo. The beautiful papers on this card come from the Pretty Patterns 2 paper pad collection. The 6x9 paper pad features 30 designer papers, 5 sheets of each design. So here you can see I have already die cut and embossed all the pieces I'm going to need to create this card. When using our stitched dies, you'll die cut and emboss these dies from multiple pieces of cardstock or pattern paper. That way you have different colors to use within the stitched area of the frame. When using our stitched dies, I always die cut a rectangle or a square that's the same size as the stitched die I'm going to be using. As I mentioned earlier, for this card, I'm using the layering panel that comes with the A2 landscape card base with layer die set. You can see that it's the same size as the stitched sunburst. Again, that die is 4 by 5 1/4. To make assembling our stitched cards quicker, I also add adhesive to the rectangle or the square, depending on which stitch die set I'm going to be using. Now I'm all set to assemble my card. Again, I added adhesive to the die cut panel that's going to go behind the stitched sunburst. I can then adhere the frame to the panel that has adhesive on it. Again, by adding adhesive to the die cut panel that you're going to use as your background, it's going to make it a lot quicker to assemble your card. After the border is adhered to the background, you can then adhere your die cut and embossed pieces into place. Then finish adding all the die cut and embossed pieces in place, and then you can embellish your card. Again, when using the stitched sunburst die, I did die cut and emboss 3 times using the Pretty Patterns 2 paper pad collection. I did die cut it a 4th time from black glossy cardstock because I wanted to use my foiling sentiment from the Bold Blessings foiling die duo, and that I had already done in silver on black glossy cardstock. Again, you can see just how quick and easy it is to create multiple cards using our stitched background dies. These panels are now ready to embellish with additional Divinity Designs products. You can then mat the background using our matting rectangle and then layer on the A2 landscape card base with layer die, or you can use it on a portrait card. Thank you again for joining us for our virtual event featuring our stitched background dies. If you have any questions about the products used on the cards shown in this video, you can use the leave a message button on our website to send us an email. For more inspiration using these and additional Divinity Designs products, visit the product pages on our website, like us on Facebook, or follow us on Pinterest and Instagram.